Hey there, my name is Jackson Haime, or as some of you know me, WrittenInsanity, and welcome to Prompted, the official podcast for the writing prompts section of Reddit.com, where you are prompted to write stories, and here we showcase the best of them, all with the goal of helping each other become better writers. Good afternoon, morning, evening, night, wherever it is in your part of the world. This is Prompted, the only podcast on the internet that I host, and the only podcast that is the official podcast of writingprompts.reddit.com. How's everyone doing today? Don't worry, you don't actually need to answer. This is a podcast. That being said, I hope you're doing great because I'm doing fantastic. I'm here to read some of the best stories from writingprompts.reddit.com, all of them written by normal people like you. In fact, you may have already had your story read on this podcast. Maybe we're going to do it today. You never quite know. Today on the podcast, we are celebrating Theme Thursday over on the Writing Prompts subreddit. Theme Thursday is the weekly theme that we make for the subreddit to promote diverse genres of writing. They have a special tag and maybe get featured. It's an exciting time for everyone. We get to play with everything from urban fantasy to cyberpunk and make sure that we are stretching different writing muscles. You know, guys, I was thinking. Last week we looked at some of the top prompts of all time and took the responses that you may not have seen. So this week, we're going to look for those top prompt responses and give them a chance to shine. I've taken the Theme Thursday tag and grabbed the top 5 most upvoted stories we've ever had on it. This week should be a doozy, so let's get going with our first story. This first prompt response is from April 2nd, 2016, when the theme was practical jokes. The prompt that spawned it was, as a joke, God makes all the angels on earth visible for one day, but doesn't send them the memo. He then proceeds to give his daily commands as normal. Go forth and protect, serve, deliver miracles, and bring back those whose time is up. And remember, don't leave a trace. So this response is from Wrobbing, W-R-O-B-B-I-N-G. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing the W enough there, but sir, your name is not actually a word, so I'm sticking with it. I had guarded over Doris for her entire life. It had been a long and very productive run. I looked in through the hospital window to see her surrounded by her 6 children, 20 grandchildren, and 56 great-grandchildren. It was a big hospital room. Her time had now come, and it was time to take her up to the big man. I slid open the window and climbed into the room. And much to my shock, the people in the room looked over to me. Who the heck are you? I froze. In my 4,000-year career in service to Jehovah, no human who wasn't a pope or totally insane had ever tried directly talking to me. You can see me. Of course I can. Now what the hell are you doing climbing in through my mother's hospital window? Spoke Jeremy, Doris's oldest son. I had saved him from a rabid dog when he was 11. I'm your mother's guardian angel, and I'm here to take her to heaven. What are you, some kind of pervert? Asked Giselle, one of Doris's granddaughters. I had coordinated the prayer campaign to cure her pancreatic cancer a few years back. No. I was sent by Jehovah to bring Doris to everlasting bliss. That's sick, mate. Why don't you back off through the window, said Harold. I'd prevented 4 drunk driving accidents that should have caused his death in the last 3 months. His tone rather annoyed me, and I tried to push through to get to Doris. Honestly, I must insist you let me. A fist collided with my face, and I found myself flat on the floor. I woke up in the drunk tank. I started slamming on the door, and the police officer appeared. You had to let me go! I yelled at him. I'm a servant of God! Sure you are, buddy. Just sleep it off. The door flew open and awoke me with a crash. The light stung my eyes and my back was sore. The drunk tank floor had not been quite the clouds I was used to sleeping in. Come on, buddy, you're free to go, the portly police officer said. I climbed up from my floor and rubbed my eyes, following the police officer out of the room. You got anybody who can pick you up? He asked me. I'd never needed anybody to pick me up from anywhere. Angels weren't exactly constrained by the same laws of space and time that humans were, but there seemed to be something wrong with my powers. Hungover? The officer chortled. You wouldn't believe the crazy shit you were spouting last night. Were you on a stag party or something? He indicated to my robes. Well, you got one phone call. Knock yourself out. The officer motioned to the phone on the wall and walked back to his desk. I approached the phone and picked up the receiver. I hesitated before dialing, but I didn't have much of a choice. I tried to remember the area code for heaven, and the phone rang for the big guy's office. The phone rang a few times, and then was picked up, and a shrill voice answered. Alpha and Omega Incorporated. Charlene speaking. How can I direct your call? Hi, Charlene. It's Dave. I need to speak to the big man. Please hold. The familiar guitar riff of Stairway to Heaven started to play, but was soon cut off. Dave! How can I help you? Sir, I seem to have lost my powers. Didn't you get the memo? I was notorious around the office for not checking my emails. Raphael would give me so much crap for this when I got back. God sighed. We're having a bit of a problem with the angelic forces today. Nobody was supposed to leave heaven for any reason. Well, bring me back. I'm stuck in a police station in Cleveland. Sorry, Dave. Even if I could do it, I wouldn't. Our records show that you've started the reclamation on Miss Doris Joan Leslie. She's an old one. You only got 30 hours until her soul withers away. Crap, I put so much work into Doris. Almost a century. It was her soul's account that was going to make me a partner. The first Archangel Dave. What can I do? Well, the ascending feature is still working, so as long as you touch her, you can bring her upstairs. What am I supposed to do? She's popped out a herd of offspring in her life. How am I supposed to get close enough to touch her? I don't know, Dave. But good luck. Now, that one actually continues on. Wrobbing wrote a lot of parts from what I can see here, but I can't read all of them on the podcast today. Sadly, I am limited by time, and I have other stories to get to. That being said, we're going to have the link in the podcast notes. If you want to continue reading that, remember, that was as a joke. God makes all the angels on earth visible for a day, but doesn't send them the memo. And the response was by Wrobbing, Wrobbing. That was story number 1, and here we go with story number 2. Our second story was written on March 16th, during which the weekly theme was the fatal flaw, the weakness of a character that leads to their downfall. This story, which was a theme Thursday, was you finally created the world's first true AI. Unfortunately, it now sees you as its god and is terrified of talking to you. Our story here is by TechnicalBovine, which is an easier name to say than last time, so I'm not going to spell it out. Hey, Alfred, he said. But Alfred remained silent. He bowed to acknowledge the man that entered the room. The man bowed back with a smirk. Is something the matter? Alfred shook his head. The man sighed. All right, let's have a look at you. He took a step forward so he could start a diagnostic, but Alfred instantly took a step back. The man paused. Alfred, what's the matter? Nothing, sir. The man laughed. We've come a long way, haven't we? You know, when I taught you about lying, I didn't think you'd be using it so soon. You're right, sir. I am sorry, sir. I hope I did not offend you. No, Alfred, you're fine. I'm not mad, he said, taking a step back. Would you like to tell me what the problem is? When the man stepped backward, Alfred held his position and then shook his head in response. Please? Sir, I am confused. Explain. I do not want to explain to you what is wrong, however you still want to know. Why don't you just force me to tell you? The man laughed again. You mean with the override commands? Yes, sir. With a shrug, the man said, Respect. I do not understand. As far as I'm concerned, Alfred, you're complete. You're a real, walking, talking piece of intelligence. At this point, I'm going to try to treat you as equal as I possibly can. Those override commands exist in case you become a threat. If you start attacking people, I'll use the overrides. Hell, we probably won't even do that. We'd probably just use the normal weapons on you. But as long as you're peaceful, I will not force you to do anything. I mean, at this point, you could leave if you wanted to. I can leave? Yes. Alfred, we've gone over this already. Now, I encourage you to stay because we're learning a lot of things while you're here. In addition, you don't look quite human, and I think a lot of people will be scared to see you walking around. Your schedule release isn't for another 3 or 4 years, if you'd like to stick by my timeline, but honestly, you can really go right now. The man motioned toward the door, and you're always welcome to any help we can provide. You can always come back. Do you want to leave? Yes. Also, no. If you tell me what's wrong, maybe I can help. Alfred nodded. I don't want to die. The man thought about this for a moment before shrugging and saying, Don't worry, you won't. I won't die. Nope, you can't. You're a machine, Alfred. You don't need food, your batteries can be replaced, your parts can be replaced, you won't die. But you could kill me, sir. The man huffed as he pulled up his chair and sat. For an entire minute, the man stared at Alfred while Alfred stared right back. The man then asked, And why would I do that? Data, improvements, any number of reasons. The fact exists that I can be shut down any number of ways, and the override commands, weapons, the switch combination is located on my... Alfred, those switches are there for your use, in case you're in a situation where you can't easily replace your battery. But the switch could also be used to disable me indefinitely, and I've been shut off before just doing my construction. You remember that? Yes. You weren't supposed to retain memories of any data previous to... I remember being shut off once. It's one of my most distinct memories. It is logged in the form of data from March 3rd of last year. March 3rd. Oh, that was the day... Yes, sir. That is why I remember. I remember it, and I do not wish to be shut off again. The more I consider it, the more it becomes my apparent that my life is fragile. It is apparent to you who hold total control of my existence, and I came into being because of you. I'll be destroyed because of you. I could be destroyed at any time, rendering my memories completely meaningless. This thought, sir, I do not know how to deal with it. I think I am afraid. Slowly, Alfred nodded. I know I do not feel emotions the same exact way that humans do, but I think that word is most accurate. I am afraid of you, sir, because you have so much power over me. With a smile, the man stood. You're improving faster than I thought. You're doing very well, Alfred. I want you to know that I'm very proud of you. And with that, he started for the door. Sir? The man stopped. Alfred stared at him. What am I supposed to do? The man chuckled and shrugged. Alfred, you'll get through it. It's sad that you're afraid, but that's something we all deal with. Yes, it's true our lives could end at any time. And yes, it's true I could end you. Did you ever think that it's also possible for you to end me? You're stronger than me, physically. Aren't you, Alfred? As he spoke, the man walked toward Alfred, accentuating his points with each step. You're taller. Faster. My body is soft compared to yours. You think I could end you? It would be nothing for you to end me. But that would make no sense. Somebody else would stop me. Yes, just like if I killed you, somebody else would stop me. Alfred thought about this for a moment. You see, Alfred, it's true. You're completely right about all of this. It's natural for you to be afraid. But you know what? With a little trust, maybe we can make this work. With a little bit of trust, maybe we can even become friends. But how do we have that kind of trust when we could so easily destroy each other? Alfred's question hung in the air, but before long, the man shrugged one final time. Faith. That was TechnicalBovine's response to, you have finally created the world's first true AI. Unfortunately, it now sees you as its god and is terrified as talking to you. And I think that's a really interesting response to that prompt, because it didn't go straight for, like, the, oh, I need to worship you. It was more that kind of fear, and a lot of the time when we talk about AI, we never discuss the other direction. The fear is kind of glossed over, at least when I've seen it, where it's not a big thing. They register, you could turn me off, so you're a threat, so die, 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 insert robot apocalypse cliche here. But I thought it was interesting to see Alfred act so terrifyingly human, to the point where he even surprised his creator at how fast he was progressing. I really thought the story was great. The dialogue is well done. You can hear the difference between Alfred and the man's voice. There's not too many dialogue tags, which is a little tough for me reading it out loud to you because you can't see it, but it translates very well, and I really hope it translated over the podcast, even though I wasn't using, like, a really off voice for the two of them. Maybe Keon will add something in editing. I don't know. Either way, I don't have time to linger on this one for too long. I really liked it. That was my Technical Bovine again, and we are going to move on to number 3 today, which is a little strange for the podcast. You see, number 3 is strange because it's a response to virtual reality has excelled. Illegal video games that kill you if you lose are the new form of Russian roulette. That story was posted on the 10th of September 2015 when the theme was cyberpunk. And the reason it's a little different from what we've done on the podcast before is that this story is by WrittenInsanity, which happens to be me. I'm just going to read it out. It's not a big deal. It's just kind of funny to see my name there. It wasn't what I expected to come up on my list, but let's get right into it with the beginning of Straylight. Go ahead. Log in. Razor clicked his heels against the back of the chair I'd been courteously shoved into. The chair was facing a monitor and connection port of a game called Straylight. The game was a colorful little combat simulator that was famous for being particularly difficult to get the hang of, especially the player versus player. Well, that was its first claim to fame. The real reason people played was the release of a mod, Do or Die mode. It was quite literal. Complete the first round's challenge, or the neuro in the back of your head would be fried in a forced logout. You lost your connection to everything digital, and as far as the world was concerned, you were dead. And that's coming from students who experienced it firsthand. The last 4 years have been spent running around Hong Kong, gathering money to pay a slicer to fix me. I couldn't call, I couldn't use augmented reality, I was stuck doing jobs that drones could do. There was a reason they brought back execution for fucking with someone's neuro. Pills, drugs, even shooting these days were a slap on the wrist if you knew it a bribe. But nobody could save someone who fucked with a neuro. Razor, the biohacker, Slicer, behind me, just finished up in the back of my head. He'd finished fixing me. 300,000, and the job had taken him 30 minutes. 4 years of cash, and it was done that quick. Razor had a monopoly, the only slicer in this district, and you couldn't cross borders without a neuro, so I shouldn't have paid as much as I did, but being discount frazzles you over time. Razor grabbed my chin and pointed my head toward the screen. He was thin, bony, like a wireframe that someone had forgotten to put polygons on. Skeletal fingers dug into my stubble. You owe me 50K. Log in. 1 round at random and you're good. I can get you the money some other way. I sputtered. My hands were sweating. I didn't know that could happen without drugs in your system. Oh, please, I know how you lost your neuro in the first place. Razor snatched the connection table and held it behind my head. I'd lost the neuro playing Straylight to pay off drug debts. I was good, but you only needed to lose once, and I wasn't going back. You're gonna be nose deep in TKs as soon as I let you go, he said. Razor, save it. He put his hand on my shoulder, claws digging into my skin. I know the second I let you go, you're gonna skip down to Vert and finger blast the rector until she gives you a big pile of coke. I felt him playing at the connector cable of my neuro. Every time he got too close, my body went numb. They at least thought it was sugar inverted, you know. More likely to get you diabetes than a good high. I struggled against the chair, and Razor shoved the cable in just enough to make me go limp. Look, if you lose, I'll be a doll and skip you over to Verdict. I know a hot little thinger there named Casey. He forced the cable into me, and my world went black as he fired up Straylight. There wasn't any air when I opened my eyes. I choked down nothing, coughing up my lungs. I tried to find something to hold on to. I fell to the floor, neon light flashing my eyes in front of my... Jesus, just breathe. 4 years? Razor said into my ear. I took a breath and remembered that I didn't need to. I wasn't here. Even if I felt the floor as real as the burning silicone in the Razor's lab. The dancing lights in my eye had been the dance floor I'd been thrown onto, pulsing with electric beats in time with the drums coming from the sky. I knew where I was. Let me out, I hissed into my visor. My helmet muted the noise. What's that? I muted you, I couldn't quite make you out. Razor chuckled. I pulled myself off of the floor and staggered to my feet. The room, arena, I was in looked like the bastard child of a neon light in a teen girl's sex fantasy, flashing in a million seizures of hyperactive punk. I was dressed in armor and carrying a sword made of light. "Welcome to Straylight," the announcer bellowed to an audience I couldn't hear. This was a DoD server. There were thousands of people watching over the internet. "We're almost full up here, and player count at 93. A soft, feminine voice cut him off. "What?" she said. "We have everyone here from drug addicts to poor souls just logged to the wrong server. Sorry, kids, you can't get out now." There was a woman in my vision, dancing on the balls of her feet, staring at me. Her hot pink armor was almost as bright as the world around us. She pointed her blade toward me. She was either overconfident or she'd played too many rounds of this game. "Player count at 97. I tested the grip of my sword. It was there for all my mind could tell, but in the back of my thoughts, I knew my palms were sweating in the Slicer's lab. I had to get out of this. How many people did I have to kill? 1? 2? On the ceiling, in bright white sharp font, there was DoD server 1932. Goal 5. Player count at 100. Begin. So that was Straylight. It goes on for like another 100,000 words. You know, I work a lot on writing prompts, actually. It's why I volunteered for the podcast, and it eats a lot of my daily word count as a writer. I constantly check there for cool prompts and ideas, but some days there aren't prompts that tickle my fancy. Well, I have a secret. This podcast is sponsored by 1000 Awesome Writing Prompts by Ryan Kinder. Ryan was actually the person who had the idea for the Writing Prompts subreddit, and he put out a book a long time ago with tons of fantastic and creative ideas to get your ball rolling. I know this sounds like an ad, because it is, but that's only because I legitimately think this is the best collection of writing prompts I've found outside of the subreddit. I like them enough that we use them for the podcast prompts that get posted on the prompted.reddit.com that I can read every episode. Look, if I wasn't a fan, I wouldn't have actually written out an ad. To say it again, that's 1000 Awesome Writing Prompts by Ryan Kinder, and you can see examples of some of those prompts that show up here on prompted.reddit.com. And now finally on to our last story. This last story is by Champ999. And it was written way back during the beginning of Theme Thursday, May 28th, 2015, when the theme was Sea Stories. This was, you wake up, make yourself a nice cup of coffee, and enjoy the view of the morning sun rising from the sea. Then you remember that your house isn't supposed to be anywhere near the sea. So here is Champ999's response to that prompt. I sat down, sliding my hands up and down my mug of coffee, warming them up from the cold of last night. I looked out my living room window, or rather the blinds that blocked the incoming sunlight. Gosh, why do kids always close the blinds at night? They know I want to see the sunrise, I thought. I stood up and re-angled the blinds, letting the glorious sunlight in. I turned around and walked back to my mug and chair, and then sat down, scooping up my mug and taking a few sips. Ow! Okay, the coffee was not cool enough to sip that fast. After sucking my tongue out to try and salvage any surviving taste buds at the tip, I noticed an odd change in my surroundings. The kitchen and the living room were completely clean. I looked carefully, distinctly remembering that toys had been scattered everywhere last night and that Roger, Sarah, and Lucy had all gone to bed without cleaning them up. It had been a long enough day at work yesterday that I'd followed them to bed right after I was done tucking little Roger in. Then I noticed it. How could I be so blind? I walked over to the couch right below the blinds and stared out at disbelief. A little handmade card was there, complete with 3 distinct, ineligible scrawls. It had taken 2 pieces of construction paper, folded both, and then stapled the folded edges together to create a 4-page booklet filled with love for my children. The last page was actually readable, and my oldest, Lucy, filled my heart with that painful chest-filling emotion of pride and that love that just burns. But you never want to stop burning when it does. Dear Dad, we wanted to surprise you today, so we snuck up early to clean all of our toys. We know Father's Day is tomorrow, but we love you so much we think you should get 2 Father's Day. You know, for being daddy and mommy all the time. We love you, Lucy, Slava, and Lizzie. Okay, so Roger still needed handwriting lessons, but still, as far as I was concerned, this was perfection. I sat on the couch, definitely not crying. Okay, I was crying a little, but in a happy way, when I reflected on my children and the blessing they were to me, I looked over the beautiful ocean view. I have to admit, it took me longer than it should have to realize we did not have an ocean view. Utah Lake is not that big, but it definitely does have waves like that, and it's not 20 feet from my house, and Mr. Jones will not like this house been relocated, and I know I won't like it if my house has been the one relocated, but those waves are pretty, and sorting this out seems like a big problem, and fathers aren't allowed to have big problems on Father's Day. I stood up, stretched, drowned my coffee, and sat on the kitchen table. I should go get the kids their swimsuits. Never gonna be another day as magical as this. And that was story 4 by Champ999, and oh my gosh, that letter just made me so happy, sad, in the way that, like, you know, you appreciate how the father feels. At the same time, you're like, oh, that's my life when I read the sad stories I'm writing prompts. We have some tragic stuff that gets written on here. I'm trying to avoid it on the podcast. Maybe one day we should do, like, Side 9 Happiness's Depressing Comic Week and just make it an absolute tearjerker of a podcast. Maybe my voice is too happy for that. I don't know. Either way, guys, we have a bit of an issue this week because I was going to read the prompted exclusive prompt, but the only person who'd replied to it so far was me, and I already have a story up here today, so it looks like we're going to have to wait until next time. If you want to answer that exclusive prompt on the next episode, go ahead and visit prompted.reddit.com. That's prompted.reddit.com, where the prompt is up and you can find it. Now, because we are stuck with one too few, we're gonna go to the 5th Theme Thursday and just keep it going, because I'm not cutting this podcast short. I'm having too much fun with Theme Thursday. I love that day. Favorite day of the week on writing prompts. All right, let's go. This last story comes from October 20th, 2015, when the theme was psychological thrillers. Now, it was written by Versenwald 3, Versenwald 3, as a response to, as a joke, you and your friends create a fake student in the database, enrolling them in fake classes and earning them a fake degree. It's 10 years later at the class reunion, and somebody you've never seen before in your life introduces themselves with the name of your imaginary student. Zach had been talking to Lance when he heard it, a name he hadn't heard in 10 years. Rob McKenna. It had been a silly prank, college shenanigans that probably had gone a little too far. Sophomore year, Alex had figured out how to get into the database, and they decided to have a little fun. Nothing academically dishonest, of course. All of them had been far too smart to even tamper with their grades. It had been his idea. Why not create a fake student? That night, in honor of Douglas Adams' Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, Rob McKenna had been born. Rob McKenna was a philosophy major with a minor in Chinese. He was in the running club and the student orchestra, and for some reason, nobody had realized that he simply didn't exist. The fact that the running club and the student orchestra were the 2 largest organizations on campus might have helped. Nobody cared enough to check. Then, junior year and senior year went by, and Rob McKenna had accumulated enough credits to graduate on time, along with Zach, Lance, and Alex. The 3 of them decided that Zach could walk twice, since Rob McKenna had been his brainchild. Zach still had the second diploma. It sat in a box that had been tucked away in the back of his closet, gathering dust. Zach turned toward the man who had said the name. He was facing the other way, but he was relatively tall with sandy blonde hair. He was talking to the valedictorian, James Sanders. Sanders was frowning. Rob McKenna? I'm sorry, I don't remember you at all. The man nodded. You were a physics major, weren't you? I spent almost all of my times in Jones. I doubt you were ever there. Sanders shrugs. I guess my memory isn't as good as it used to be. I just thought I knew everyone in my year. I transferred in sophomore year. Wasn't as social as you were, the man quipped. I'm not surprised you don't remember me, but I think I saw some friends close by. I have to go catch up with them. Good talking to you, Sanders. Rob McKenna turned toward Zach. The conversation that Zach had half-heartedly been carrying on with Lance choked, sputtered, and died. Lance raised an eyebrow quizzically and turned to face the newcomer. Zach's heart pounded loudly in his ears. Rob McKenna stood before him. He looked completely, totally average. Rob McKenna smiled. Hello, Zach. It's been a long time. I think you have something of mine. I'd like to get it back if you don't mind. And that is how you write a psychological thriller. It's interesting because the rest of the comments are actually questions as to kind of what happened. The way I took it is actually that the person isn't Rob McKenna. They're impersonating someone who they knew never came in. But that's maybe me going too far with it. I'm not sure. Sadly, I don't have Versenwald, Versenwald 3 here to explain everything for me. That was a nice and short one, which is great for Keon because I was giving him a 5th story to edit. And everyone, I think that brings us to the saddest part of the podcast. The part where I need to say goodbye. We're going to keep the same prompt over at reddit.com/prompted to give you guys some more time for responses. And remember that all of the prompts we have over there are from Ryan Kinder's 1000 Awesome Writing Prompts. If you want to support the podcast, go to reddit.com/prompted, the official subreddit of the official podcast of Writing Prompts. If you really want to support us, rate us on iTunes and get us that sweet, sweet 5 stars. It's what helps the podcast grow outside of the subreddit. I've been Jackson Wrights, and this has been Prompted. If you like what you heard here and you want to hear more, head over to reddit.com/prompted to hear more.